when did you decide that you wanted to become a welder? When was the first time you were even exposed to it?
I was driving from Newnan to Carrollton, and there's a company, Georgia Power has a plant there, Plant Wansley and Plant Yates. And I was driving from Newnan to Carrollton, and I noticed they were teaching students out in this field under a canopy that had sparks and fire and everything. And the girl that was in the car with me said, "Look, there's girls taking that class." And I thought, wow, okay. So I went over to the college. Carroll Tech was the name of it then. And the guy was showing me around, and he showed me the nursing and the accounting and all the girl type stuff, you know. And I'm like, I'm not interested in that. What else do you have? And he says, well, usually this is man dominated down here, but or populated, whatever you want to call that. But I'll show it to you. So he goes to the machine shop, and he goes through the auto collision. What else? Auto body. You know, all that stuff that guys do on the cars and mechanics and stuff, you know. So they got down to the very last one. I'm thinking, like, I'm not going to find anything I like. And so they get down to the welding part, and I could look in the door, and he says, well, now, this one is welding. Mr. Owen's teaching this class, and there's a little opening in the door. I could look in there, and there was a guy sitting in there. He had a pipe in his mouth, but I'm sure it wasn't lit, but I was like chewing on it. And he had really white hair like mine now, you know, and a beard, and I thought, oh God, he looks like Santa Claus, you know. So I go in, and he introduces me, and he says, well, come on back, Missy, let me show you what we do, you know. So I go back to the lab, and he sits down, he puts the apron over me, and he gives me a welding helmet, and he dresses himself too with a PPE, and he takes a 60-10, which I haven't used in years, and he takes a piece of metal, and he stands it up, and he runs the 60-10 in a vertical. And I'm sitting there watching him like, oh, that's cool, you know. And he said, do you want to try it? And I'm like, yeah. So I did the same thing, and I ran the bead too, and he's like, you got the knack, you know, if you like this, you need to do this. I said, okay. I ended up taking the welding class, and to me, it's fun, it's art, and it's good money, so.
Absolutely. What year was that? And I know you don't want to talk about how old you are now, but what year, or how old were you when you started those classes?
I think I was like 24, 23, 24, something like that.
Definitely. And that year was, that was 1975?
Mm-hmm, somewhere in there.
Perfect. So your career now, like after you, and I think you said over the phone, it was a 2-year course that you finished in 6 months,
mm-hmm.
which is incredible to me. You know, during that course, you know, were you the only woman in there? I know you said you had a friend. Can you kind of tell me about the women in the room, like when you were pursuing this? What did that look like?
There's never been any women. I mean, Joan did it first, my girlfriend, and she didn't know her at the time. And then Mr. Owens introduced us. He said, well, maybe together you girls can, you know, find a job. And that's how we ended up getting a job together.
Definitely. And where are you from originally? I forgot to ask that.
Newnan.
Okay, definitely. And that's in Georgia?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
it's just southwest of Atlanta.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about the career that after you graduated or finished the course, you got your first job, and then from my understanding from Randy and Preston, it seems like you've traveled. Can you kind of tell me about like some of the jobs that you have done since, and just what your career has kind of spanned over the years of what you've done?
Well, I started out welding water tanks, flat bottoms, and then tower tanks. The tower tank the largest tower tank was 165 foot, and we were fearless back then. I mean, just climb up and weld, and you know, it was, I guess when you're young, it's fun, you know. The girls didn't have any problems, you know. I mean, we did everything the guys did, so we're not strong. I'm not strong. I can't pick up heavy stuff, but I can weld right along with everybody else. I fell on the second job. I fell. The leads were tied close to the ladder. I couldn't get my fingers in there, and I slipped, fell, broke both feet. So, so I ended up back home. My mom and dad took care of me, but I went back to school and took the advanced classes on crutches and casts. And when I got where I could walk again, Mr. Owen says, "You need to go to Macon. You know, they've got a big company down there. You know, there's jobs down there." So I drove down to Macon, and it's Brown & Williams Tobacco. They were building that plant, and I thought I looked like a guy. I put on one of those big shirts and put my hair under a hat, and I don't look like a guy. Well, anyway, I got the job. I took the test, got the job, and started working. I think I was working on the ironworkers at that time. And I went back home and told Joan, I said, "I got us another job." She said, "Okay, you know." So she comes down. She's from Tallapoosa. She came down, and she took the test. She got hired on. We're in the same crew again. And we worked there probably, I know I was there 18 months, and she was probably there at least a year anyway. And then I hired on in the plant. Well, she couldn't get hired on in the plant. I don't know what the deal was there. So she went on welding tanks, and she ended up in Mississippi. And I stayed here. I stayed in Macon since then, and that's where I met my husband.
Okay, awesome. You know, I imagine there had to have been a turning point or some point in getting to where you were. Did you ever realize that what you were doing was very out of the ordinary for women, especially in this, 1970s to 1990s period where you were really honing in on your craft? When did it really hit you that you were kind of, like we've been saying, pioneering, or just being a very small population of, you were part of this small population of women in trade skills, and particularly welding, but like, when did you kind of realize that you were doing something that many women don't do, or it's not a territory that, women are often in?
I think my attitude was, I can do this, I like to do this, and why won't they let me do this, Why are they ugly to me, And I'd go to a job, and they're like, "What are we going to do with you?" I'm thinking like, "You're not going to do anything with me, I just need to work," I loved welding, and still do. So it was super hard. Back then, the small companies would not even talk to me. "Oh, we don't have a bathroom," or "We don't need anybody." But then the guy I walk in with, they hire him, So it was, but the larger companies they've got more women. Not that they've got more women welders, but they've got more women in there. Some electricians and some other, type crafts. And the job I'm working now, is the first job ever that there's a girl welder with me, and she's almost in the crew with me. She's crew beside me, so it's like, makes it more fun. I've got a girl to talk to.
Awesome. No, this is incredible. Why is it important? Why do you think it's important for women to have a presence in this field, in this industry, especially speaking as to somebody who's had such an awesome career in it? Why I feel like you have this platform to kind of talk about how important it is for women to be in trade skills and be in welding, but why is it important?
I think girls can weld just as easy as guys can. I mean, it's simple. It's eye-hand coordination, as long as you don't mind getting dirty. I mean, to me, it's fun. If you like art, I like art, So.
And I know we talked about, the things that you've done, but tell me, like, how far you've traveled or where you've worked. Off camera, I think we talked about kind of the different states, but tell me all the places that welding has taken you and some of the experiences you've seen with it.
I think the first ones, when I was working with my best friend, she and I were sent to South Carolina, then North Georgia, and then to Texas. After that, I came back to Macon, and I worked locally because I'd just gotten married here. And then later, when the kids got older, my kids got big enough my kids got grown. So I was like, I think I want to go over here and work. So I went to Plant Shear, worked at Plant Shear for several years. And then one company sent me over to Plant Wansley, which is in Union, Carrollton. And all my relatives live there, so I stayed with them, and I got to work there, and then kind of eased him into it. And then the same company had another job in Florida, so I'd already worked with that company, and they were pretty good to me. So I went to St. Petersburg and worked there on an airport. And then when I came back, I think I worked at Alabama, and then I ended up back with Flora again in South Carolina in a nuclear plant, Savannah River plant. And then the one I'm at now is in Waynesboro. It's Plant Vogel.
Okay, definitely. And how far is Waynesboro from here?
Under 3 hours. I'd say it's 2.5 maybe.
Okay, definitely. So you've been living here for how long now?
About 22 years, something like that.
So it would be safe to say that you've lived in Macon for, like you said, 25 years. Okay, great. So yeah, we talked about, you know, the places that you've been, and just, it seems like you've just like, you were 24, you took the class and you fell in love with it. You accelerated the program that was 2 years into 6, and then just kind of took off. And even when you were told no, or we don't have the bathroom or whatever, did it ever cross your mind, you know, this is hard, maybe I don't want to do this, or, you know, what kept you going?
I knew I could do it. If they just let me, I could do it. And it was good money, and it was fun, and I was stubborn. I just wanted to do it.
Absolutely. So can you tell me, like, maybe was there a job that you felt particularly where, like, you know, like, I barely got this, or they were skeptical about me, and then you, like, knocked it out of the park, or, like, was there a moment where, like, you know, you showed your skills and then they were like, can you kind of take me back to one of those and kind of paint the picture for me of if you remember what exactly?
Yeah, it was one of the companies I worked for at Plant Shear. When I got in there, it's like the guy that was the supervisor says, well, get your stuff, and what am I going to do with you? I'm thinking, like, I'm going to work. You're not going to do anything with me. I came here to work, you know. And well, get your stuff, and let's go over here. So I get my stuff, and the guy says, well, you should bring your own stuff. I said, well, I got my stuff. I mean, he was just snotty, you know. But then later, before that job was over, he had me doing all the most important stuff to me. And by the time he left before I did, and he walked over and put his hand on my shoulder, and he says, you've done a great job. He says, you're pretty good, you know. So I thought, wow, from being so snotty, now he tells me how good I am. So it made me feel better, you know. Once they got to see that I can actually work and weld, you know, I stayed on the job. I didn't take breaks, you know, go out for the smoke. I didn't come in late. I didn't go home early. I didn't lay out. You know, I was there, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to work, and I don't mind working. I go out of my way to work, so.
Did you ever have to feel like you almost had to, like, prove yourself more? Like, you know,
Definitely.
You didn't take those breaks. You came in early, left late. Did you feel like you kind of had to do that where maybe a man wouldn't have?
Yes. If I did not do as well as them, if not better, and they'd hire a guy in a heartbeat. I mean, I'm not strong. I can't do the grunt work. So it's easier just to take someone that can't weld very well, that can pick up heavy stuff and do all the hard work, and instead of me, you know. But if I could do a little bit better than them, then it was more beneficial for them.
Definitely.
So.
Wow. Okay. Great. And then, you know, you not only weld, but you became an instructor. So can you kind of take me through when you started teaching, or how you got into teaching, and then a little bit of the workspace here? You know, what did you end up doing with this area?
I was working in maintenance, which it's not that much welding and maintenance, you know, but sometimes you do what you got to do. And it was one of those jobs where, you know, you need to be home barefoot and pregnant. You know, you don't need to have this man's job. You're taking a man's job. And, like, I wasn't treated nice, and I hated it. And I ended up leaving and going to Central Georgia Tech. I taught there for, I know, at least 4 years. But it was kind of demanding. You know, you had to be there all the time. I mean, it was, you had breaks, like, in between quarters. You had breaks like Tuesday and Wednesday, or Wednesday and Thursday. And my husband says, well, we can never go anywhere because you're always working, you know. He says, when are you going to retire? I mean, I wasn't even 50, you know. I didn't want to retire, you know. I was ready to keep going. So I ended up retiring, and but I didn't stay home long. Then I saw another ad for a welder at Plant Shear, and that's when I started Plant Shear. Well, I was probably there, I don't know if I was even there 6 months, and some of the helpers were trying to get into the welding program that they offered. And there was such a long waiting list, and they're all fussing about it. You know, you used to be an instructor, why don't you teach us? I'm like, well, I'm working 10 hours a day. I don't want to go home and, you know, teach you. But then after a while, they kind of wore me down, and one came over and started teaching them. Another one came over, and before it was over, I had like 17 coming here and just doing what, I had a waiting list too. So it was fun. I mean, I was back into teaching again, you know. So, but then after the shutdowns or the outages started finishing up, I didn't have that many students, and then I decided, well, you know, I'm going to stop. And then I started back going around again, you know, different companies, different states, and I don't teach anymore.
Definitely, that's awesome. So yes, right here, you guys have like a kind of a whole workplace. You know, how would you say, do you recreationally use this? How much do you use this, and like what are some of the things that you work on in this space?
Once in a while we have someone asking, you know, can you repair this, or can you weld this for me, or something like that, you know. Most of the time my husband uses it to work on cars and stuff, and my son on boats. But I just do art and stuff usually when I'm home and I can, you know. Like I made the sign out front, you know, just to be pretty. And I've got a lot of little things in the yard that I did out of plasma, and just putting stuff together, making art.
Definitely. Okay, so just a few more questions here. You know, I feel like you're a role model, and I don't know if you know that. I mean, I'm sure you do, but I was just it's super inspired when I even talked to Preston and Randy of just the way they spoke about you, and then to hear that you are a woman, it was even just more inspiring for me, who's never even like been in any type of trade skill. But you know, what advice would you give to young women today? I mean, you're a pioneer. Women like you made it possible for women today to be able to, you know, even go into this business, and I'm sure more women have over the years have been more accepted, but it was the women like you who faced those eyes and raised eyebrows and stuff about your abilities. So what advice would you give to women today who are pursuing trade skills or welding skills and everything in your experience, the way you went through it?
You can't let them discourage you. If this is what you want, you just got to keep doing it. You just got to keep plugging along, you know. You definitely need to not worry about the heat, because you're going to be hot, you know. It's like, how do you stand that sun, you know? Well, it's just part of it, you know. You're going to be hot, it's going to be dirty, and you just got to not let them discourage you.
Definitely. And what are some of the biggest things you've learned, and how long I know we don't want to get into your age, so how long am I allowed to say your career, like how many years have you been in this, in welding in total?
Maybe 35 or 40.
Okay.
Something like that.
And what are some of the biggest things you've learned now that you are, you know, at the top of your career, professional, your work speaks for itself, but to get to this spot, it took a lot of, you know, challenges and overcoming adversity and everything. What have you learned, or some of the takeaways that you have when you look back on everything? Or what did you learn about yourself?
That's a tough question.
I'm sure. It's hard to figure out when you learn about it, but I imagine you're resilient, you came over things that you never thought you would, but just, you know, what did you learn?
I think being shy. I was so shy. I just wanted to get in there and weld, you know. I didn't want to socialize with anyone. I just wanted to just tell me what to do and let me go weld, you know. So just being stubborn, I think, got me where I am. You know, just wanting to do this, and that's just stop listening to anyone and just weld.
What is it particularly about welding that just made you fall in love with it? Like, what is the feeling you get when you weld?
It takes your mind off everything else. I mean, you're concentrating on that bead, that weld, that stringer, you know, or that piece that you're working on. You know, it just, you're trying to make it look good. Everyone says you're your own critic, you know. I'm never satisfied with the way it looks. It's got to look better. It's always got to be pretty, you know. And that's me. I mean, a lot of the guys I hear at work, like, well, I don't care how it looks, I just want to make sure it's on there, you know, like, well, I do, you know. I want it to be pretty, I want it to be the best weld I've ever done, so I can look at it and say, that is pretty, you know. But I don't usually do that. It's like, well, I'll do better next time, you know.
So I feel like I could sit here and ask you questions about your career forever, but you know, like I said, it is a 1 minute 30. But is there anything, a milestone about your career, or the biggest project, or something that I didn't ask that you felt is very pertinent to, you know, a very important part of who you've become today in your welding career that I didn't ask, or that was on your mind? Is there a big job that you were put on that was like your first big, like, okay, they put me on this, now I'm the business, you know, this is, I'm like, they finally see my work, that you like worked on, that you validated all of your skills?
I think usually each company you go to, I don't care how many certificates you've had, how many qualifications you've gone through, each company you go through, you're going to be retested. So a lot of times taking those tests, and when they come out really good, and they go, oh yeah, wow, you know, that's the best one I've seen, or something like that, you know, it makes you feel like, I got it now. So. Definitely.
So every new plant you work at, there's like a test that you have to take, okay, even if you've been doing it for years at other plants.
I mean, I've been welding this long, but every single one, you've got to take those tests.
Definitely. All right, I think I have a good grasp on everything and the timeline. And so you started welding at 24, but were you in school previously for something else before that?
No.
Okay. So you came across it at Carroll. What was it?
It was Carroll Tech, but I think it's like
else.
West Georgia Technical College or something like that.
Yeah, I'll look into that. Okay, so it was just like he was kind of showing you. Oh, one question I had was, it seems like the professor or the teacher that you had, you said his name, the one that was in...
Mr. Owens.
Yeah, it seems like he seemed to believe in you and your friend from the jump. It didn't, I mean, like, how much of an impact did he have on your welding career?
I think Joan, being there first and paving it for me, he saw how well she could do and how determined she was, and here comes another female doing the same thing. I didn't know any of them, you know, just they're all strangers to me. But then he introduced us, and I think I got a lot of my strength from her too. Just watching her, you know, she was as determined as I wanted to be. So, yeah, he fine, you know, we'll get you guys going, you know. He was pushing us right along.
Definitely. All right. Anything else about this story, your story, women in welding, that you would want our viewers to know about, or that like I said, that I didn't ask, or that was heavy on your heart? Because I think you've done phenomenal for me, but I just always want to make sure. Do you have any words that you think she should, or anything that she should add, or do you feel?
She's got to be resilient, hang in there, don't take things personally, and just, you know, follow your dream, because that's what she did.
Yeah, I followed a dream. They, and I would tell them at work, there's a lot of drama going around and everything. I'm like, I'm here for the money. You know, you don't have to be my friend. You don't have to like me. I don't have to like you. I'm here for the money, and I like to work, and I like to weld. And that's how I kind of, when things get rough, you know, that's what I think. You know, I'm just here for the money. We don't have to be friends. I don't have to go drink a beer with you, you know, so.
Very tough skin, it seems like. Last thing I did that just popped in my mind, female or male, it seems like, or man or woman, it seems like welding, trade skills in general, there's always a need for it, period. So I guess to that point, can you just talk about how important trade skills are for, you know, our economy, or just for the United, or just for our country, how important it is to get people in this industry?
I think, say a young person that went into a union, you know, like if they went to the electrical or boilermakers or pipe union. I'm not saying union's best, I'm just saying if they did. They're going to put them to work. They're going to go to class a couple of nights a week. They're going to make good money while they're at work. They're there being taught on the job. And after 5 years, they've got a they know what they're doing then. They're making top pay, and they don't have a big college to pay for when they finish. So, and they're out there working their craft. So to me, that would be the way, if I could start over, that would be the way I would do it, you know, without having to pay college, pay back college.
Definitely. And you were exposed to it again. Did Joan tell you about the program at the technical college, or did you just happen to like go there to see what?
I happened to go there, and she had already been and could not find a job. So, and then meeting up with her, it gave me more courage knowing that another girl has already done this. All right, we're going to do it together, you know. So,
how does it feel to realize that you've now, you know, a woman kind of paved the way for you, and now you've kind of paved the way for others? Like,
yeah.
you know, you're like a beacon. I feel like, you know, how does that feel just to know that you've really pioneered and paved the way for a lot of other women in this industry?
It's been hard. It's been rough. I mean, it's been tough the whole time. And like you said, you had to have thick skin. You know, just don't give up. If you like it, keep doing it. That's what I did.